Recently, Groq announced a headline, "Agreement to Accelerate AI Inference at Global Scale." Behind that headline is a deal valued at roughly $20 billion, involving a non-exclusive licensing agreement with Nvidia for Groq's inference technology. The system designed to run AI models quickly, efficiently, and at scale. As part of the agreement, Groq's founder, Jonathan Ross, and key members of the Groq team are joining Nvidia to help scale the technology, while Groq continues operating as an independent company under new leadership and Groq Cloud continues without interruption. It's not being framed as a traditional acquisition, but at that price and at this point in the AI race, this move signals something much bigger about where the AI infrastructure is headed and how Nvidia plans to stay in the center of it. Over the past few years, AI headlines have been everywhere. New tools, new models, and new promises. But while most people are focused on the apps, the biggest players are fighting over something far more important: the infrastructure that runs AI at scale. Quietly, without much mainstream attention, Nvidia made a move involving a company called Groq. And that move tells us a lot about where AI, money, and power are actually heading. This wasn't about chasing the latest trend. It wasn't about short-term buzz. It was about locking in an advantage where most people aren't even looking yet. In this video, I'm going to break down what Nvidia's move with Groq really means, why it matters beyond tech insiders and Wall Street, how it affects competitors like AMD, Intel, and other major cloud providers, and most importantly, what you should take away from it if you're trying to make smarter, long-term decisions. Welcome back to the channel where I break down money, investing, technology, and business in a way that actually makes sense. If you find value from this content, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and share with a friend. All right, let's get into it. Who is this video for, and why does it matter? This video is for beginners trying to understand AI and investing, people living paycheck to paycheck and want clarity, not noise, anyone trying to build wealth but feels behind or overwhelmed, and viewers confused by headlines and market hype. And here's why this matters right now. AI isn't a trend anymore. It's becoming a core infrastructure like electricity or the internet. And when infrastructure shifts, wealth and power shift along with it. If you don't understand where the leverage is, you end up reacting instead of positioning. This video helps solve that. What actually happened with Nvidia and Groq? Let's start simple. Nvidia is already the dominant company in AI chips, especially for training large models like ChatGPT. Groq is a much smaller company, but it's very important. Groq specializes in AI inference, meaning running models fast, serving responses in real time, doing it cheaply and efficiently. Training happens only once. Inference happens every time you use AI. That's where usage explodes. What Nvidia reportedly did was not just buy a startup. They secured Groq's inference chip architecture, brought in key Groq talent and leadership, gained IP and expertise that directly complements Nvidia's GPUs. Whether it's structured as licensing or asset acquisition, functionally, Nvidia absorbed the strategic value of Groq. This is key insight. Nvidia didn't buy Groq to catch up. Nvidia did it to close a future gap before it became a threat. Why inference matters more than most people think. Here's where most people get confused. They think AI growth means more training chips, but in reality, training is expensive, inference is continuous, inference scales with users. Here's a simple mental model. Training is building a factory, and inference means running the factory every single day. Over time, inference becomes a bigger market. Groq's chips were designed to reduce latency, increase predictability, and lower cost per query. By bringing this in-house, Nvidia now controls training, inference, software, and the entire ecosystem. That's not by accident. That is vertical integration. The real strategy is platform control. This isn't just a chip deal. This is Nvidia saying, if AI is the next operating system of the world, we want to be the platform underneath it. Think about the past winners. Microsoft controlled Windows, Apple controlled hardware and software, Amazon controlled cloud infrastructure. Nvidia is positioning itself in the same way. Groq helps Nvidia defend against custom AI chips, reduce reliance on general purpose GPUs for everything, and keep developers inside Nvidia's ecosystem. Once developers build for your platform, switching costs skyrockets. That's the moat. This is where it gets really important. How does this affect Nvidia's competitors? AMD has a second place problem. AMD has been trying to compete with Nvidia in AI accelerators. They're not bad, but they're behind. Here's the issue. Nvidia controls hardware and Nvidia controls software. Nvidia now strengthens inference. AMD does not need better chips. They need an entire ecosystem. Nvidia buying Groq makes it harder for AMD because Nvidia closes the inference gap. Customers can buy one integrated stack and developers have fewer reasons to switch. AMD still has opportunities, especially on price, but Nvidia just made the hill steeper. Intel's problem is deeper. They have a structural disadvantage. They missed mobile, they missed GPUs, and they are late to AI accelerators. Groq-style inference chips were one of the few areas Intel could have differentiated. Now Nvidia has that covered too. Intel is fighting slower innovation cycles, organizational complexity, and weaker AI developer adoption. This deal signals something uncomfortable. Intel is no longer leading the future of compute. That matters long term. This is the most important part. Cloud providers don't want Nvidia to be too powerful. They've been developing custom chips, internal AI accelerators, and inference-optimized hardware. Groq was a potential alternative. Now Nvidia has more leverage. This creates tension. Clouds still need Nvidia, but dependence increases. Margins stay under pressure. In the long term, we can expect more custom silicon attempts, more diversification, but slower escape from Nvidia dominance. Nvidia buying Groq doesn't eliminate cloud competition, but it buys Nvidia time and pricing power. A couple key concepts to understand is who controls the infrastructure, who owns the ecosystem, and who benefits from the scale. AI is not about apps, it's about infrastructure. Apps change very fast, but infrastructure compounds. Dominance is built in quietly. By the time it's obvious, the advantage is already locked in. Think about how long Microsoft dominated PCs after Windows became standard. AI infrastructure is moving in the same way. Before we wrap this up, there are a few important layers to the story that are worth addressing. Not because they change the headline, but because they help explain the environment Nvidia is operating in. First is regulation and antitrust. Deals like this don't happen in vacuum. Regulators are watching large technology companies more closely than ever, especially when it comes to control over critical infrastructure. That's part of why Nvidia's move involving Groq was structured the way it was. Rather than a simple headline-grabbing acquisition, this was more of a strategic approach. They secured technology, talent, and influence while avoiding the kind of regulatory friction that can slow or block deals entirely. This doesn't mean regulation goes away. It means Nvidia is being intentional about how it expands, understanding that scrutiny is now a permanent part of being a dominant platform company. The second layer is valuation. When people hear about large deals in AI, the instinct is to immediately debate whether something is overpriced or too expensive. But that framing misses the point. Nvidia isn't valuing Groq based on what it earns today. It's valuing what Groq represents in the future AI stack, specifically inference at scale. Infrastructure companies don't win by finding cheap assets, they win by securing control points that compound over time. In that context, valuation becomes less about near-term multiples and more about long-term positioning. Now let's slow down and explain something clearly. The most important technical distinction in this entire conversation: training versus inference. Training is a process of teaching AI models how to work. It's compute heavy, expensive, and happens periodically. Inference is what happens after, when the trained model is actually used in the real world, responding to users, processing data, and running continuously. Training gets at headlines because it's dramatic. Inference is quieter, but it's where scale lives. Each search, every response, every AI-powered feature relies on inference. Over time, inference becomes the dominant workload, not because it's flashier, but because it never stops. Groq specializes in that part of the stack. By bringing inference expertise closer into its ecosystem, Nvidia isn't just improving performance, it's reinforcing control over how AI is deployed, not just how it's created. And that leads to a bigger idea here: platform control. The most powerful technology companies don't win by having the single best product. They win by owning the environment everything else depends on. When developers build on your tools, when companies optimize for your hardware, And when switching becomes costly or inconvenient, you moved beyond competition and into infrastructure. This is what Nvidia is building towards. Not from dominance of marketing, but dominance through dependency. And once that happens, you often get what investors call a moat. Not a defensive one built overnight, but a structural moat that forms slowly as the ecosystem grows around a core platform. This is why this move matters. It's not about Groq as a standalone company. It's about Nvidia quietly reinforcing its position at the most critical layer of the AI economy. The layer that other companies have to pass through whether they like it or not. When you look at the story this way, it becomes clear that this isn't a short-term bet or a reactionary move. It's a continuation of a long-term strategy. Control the infrastructure, support the ecosystem, and let everything else build up. And historically, that's how enduring technology leaders are made. Here's the bottom line. Nvidia buying Groq isn't just about one company. It's about who controls the foundation of the AI economy. If this video provided you with value today, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and share with a friend. I'll see you in the next one.